Welcome to the Let It Bleed podcast, a place where you can hear the liquor-fueled ramblings of two narcissistic wizards who conjure the essence of inspirational people every week and bring it straight to you.
How do you plan on doing that?
Started off all like trippy.
Oh, God. Motherfucker.
And now for the wizards themselves, David Amaya and Phil Arroyo.
You know, Phil, I'm starting to think that you work for the CIA or some government cover-up thing because you just had to censor me when I was reading off this really informative declaration of aliens right now.
Well, you know, I think what actually was happening was that I was feeling self-conscious that this is the third fucking take that we have tried to get this show right. Because, you know, we've got a thing. Like, it should start good. If it starts out weird, that's just, it's gonna be weird as fuck.
Oh, fuck. If it's
and
right, then what's wrong?
I fucked up the first one. And then when you messed up the reading of that, I was like, now's my time to make it even feel good. And you know what? They say third time is a charm. So we're here.
Who's
the energy's
they?
right.
Huh? Who is
this
they?
This feels good.
Huh?
They. Well,
they.
I mean.
The aliens?
Yeah, the aliens.
Ah,
you know,
gotcha.
The aliens from this manuscript that you were just reading here.
Yeah.
And so, dude, we're back.
What would the aliens think about what's going on in the world right now?
Dude, the aliens would be like, good fucking luck, we are out of here. There ain't nothing of value on this planet for us to mine here. Except for these sweet, sweet souls are of their, you know, just taking their leader back, who they sent here originally. So all we would lose is Alex Jones. That's basically all that would happen if the aliens were to invade.
I
They'd
think
be like,
he lost himself already.
Yeah, no, we just not like, yo, your Uber's here. And then he's gone.
Wow.
And that is the state of the planet today. Man, the planet is so fucked, dude. That actually, like, I feel like this is almost cryptic because that has transitioned me into what I think are some important shit. Because I'm trying something new this week. I tried clipping out things, tweets, articles, shit that I'm reading, shit that just, you know, interests me for that week and, like, you know, inspires me and shit like that. Started clipping them out and saving shit. And today, before you got here, I actually put some effort into the show for once. And I actually, like, wrote some shit down to talk about. Just in case we wanted to meander. Because the number one thing I've been talking about this week is climate change. So, bam, planet, good setup.
Well, pitter
Even
patter.
though I have not told you any of this yet.
Let's get at her.
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah, I mean, we've been on for a while. And last week we had a fucking great episode talking with Blair. That shit was dope. But we haven't like gotten to you know really catch up like that. We haven't gotten to talk, just sit down and talk. To jump
back
like
into the madness.
Yeah, because there's been a bunch that we've missed. But yeah, man. So, I mean, anything you want to talk about before I dive into all my shit right here?
No, man. I mean, I'm all ears right now. I'm kind of curious as to what you got to say.
Well, I'm wondering, did you catch the Rogan this week with David Wallace Wells?
No, I have only seen the fucking Jones and David Lee Roth, but I couldn't finish the David Lee Roth one.
Oh man,
it was weird. Anyways,
yeah, I never finished the Alex Jones one either, and those are actually the only two I listened to in like a long time.
That's about 4.5 hours or some shit like that.
It's a long ass time.
We finished the last of it yesterday at Kevin's place.
Oh, okay.
And it just was redundant. It was just back and forth.
It does seem like a lot of the same shit, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, the end of it Eddie Bravo just annoys me.
He does. He's obnoxious. Some of the characters that he has on and around that shit are obnoxious. Like, remember when Red Band was like on every episode for like a year?
No, I don't recall. But I mean, I haven't seen them all. There's so many that I have missed because you're like you said. I haven't been keeping up with them. I haven't been listening to that many podcasts other than ours, of course. Yeah,
ooh,
nice.
That was cute.
That was
healthy. Oh, it did. Okay, good.
That's what's wrong with the world right there.
That is exactly what's wrong with the world, dude.
Too much gas.
Oh, man.
Too much gas.
That would have segued into my other, one of my other topics that I wanted to talk about today, which is
global warming.
Rampant actual, criminal pedophilia rings that implicate a lot of the people who are the ones who use people like Alex Jones to whip everybody up into a frenzy over fake shit that doesn't exist, like Pizzagate, when in fact the people that they worship as the heroes of their thing have now been implicated in multiple, human trafficking rings like that.
Isn't that the way it always works, though?
I'm starting to notice a pattern to where, like, the InfoWars people, Trump especially, if he's accusing somebody of doing some shit, he's probably done that shit.
So what's he accusing people of right now? or what's the newest stuff?
Well, there the most fun part of this, we'll get to the climate change shit is fucking darker than this, surprisingly. So I will save that for a little bit later on. But, this week we saw that there was okay, let me take this one step back. The owner of the Patriots was arrested for soliciting prostitutes at one of those rub and tugs in Florida.
I heard about that.
2 weeks ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the owner of that massage parlor, actually, it came out that somebody's like, hey, wait a minute. Isn't that her smiling, taking a selfie with Trump at a private Super Bowl party this year? Or from this year. And it was like, oh, shit. And people started fucking digging into it. And, oh, look at that. Looks like here's the headline that I pulled for this one. A Florida massage parlor owner has been selling Chinese execs access to Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So she has been deeply in there. Now there are pictures surfacing of her with all of these, top dogs of the Republican Party, senators and congressmen, and the president himself. And this lady owned a, series of shops that's now been taken down in a human trafficking ring. And she was using her close proximity to these people to sell access to wealthy Chinese, businessmen and people within the Chinese government to actually sell access to these people from there. So it's like, okay.
Sell access, what do you mean by that? Like sell them, like they can get special privileges here or like...
private time to speak with them and stuff like that outside of, official foreign dignitary relationships and stuff like that. So setting up a back channel, presumably with the purpose of enriching themselves,
sure,
through the government, through unofficial means.
So no money, it's just power, just like straight up.
Oh no, there's money for everybody involved usually, and it's like, hey, you want to take a meeting with these,
what I mean with the people that are like using or at least like taking advantage of the prostitution, they're not paying for it. They're paying for it with like, other favors and stuff. Like it's not like a money thing.
I mean, I don't know about that. Nothing implies that those two things are, specifically related like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to imagine that if you are going to a prostitution ring, and that prostitution ring is kind of secretly shadow organized by the Chinese government, and they would be able to have that kind of dirt on you and then use that as blackmail to leverage your position of power into something, beneficial for China. Yeah, it's kind of a problem, So if something is, beneficial to China and they want to say, hey, well, how about we, or they're doing something that China doesn't like, how about we, talk about this, or we have photos, or we have pictures, we have all kinds of things like that, This is the kind of stuff that has actually been the central problem of this administration and this presidency, is that there is so much dirt on all of these people that they are kind of forced to keep going. It's the whole reason Russia happened. They have dirt on the president and a lot of people in Congress, and all these people, they're leveraging that to get them to act in a way that is beneficial to them. That literally explains it. There is a quid pro quo is what they call it. Like, this is they want this, and like that's why they're doing this thing, but they're not saying that's why they're doing it. So that's been a fun story, and that has there's a weird what do they call it? Schadenfreude I've had, just like, oh, you motherfuckers. Like, it is kind of satisfying to see all of the worst people are suddenly showing up with this lady and being not explicitly implicated in any of the crimes that were going on around that, but there's a lot of things that you can kind of deduce from that kind of shit. A lot of it is alleged, not all of it's officially out there, but it's definitely something of note that I think people should pay attention to. And in the avalanche of just awful shit that's been going on, I say this week, but like every week, really, some of these things kind of get lost in the fray. And that's something that I wanted to, just make sure that didn't get lost there.
Right.
And especially because I lived this shit. It is unhealthy. It's bad for me. And that's why it is so much fun for me to spread this unhealthy knowledge to everybody around here on this goddamn show. Because some of this shit, like, talking about pedophilia specifically, this led me on to talk about something that I don't think I've talked about before, which is the relationship of our Secretary of Labor, Alex Acosta, who was a Trump appointee. We didn't talk about this when it really broke maybe a month or two ago. Everything has felt like 1,000 years since, every month has felt like that. But, it came out that there's this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, who, when Alex Acosta was the U.S. attorney for Southern Florida, approved a non-prosecution agreement for him for, trafficking allegedly hundreds of underage girls to giant sex parties that many celebrities, rich, famous people in the, billionaire elite would attend, including President Donald Trump. And where, one of the features is, underage girls that were there for human trafficking kind of reasons. Just some really awful shit that I don't want to get into the details of. But this is something that I can't, it endlessly frustrates me that so much of the talking points of the talk radio people, the Rush Limbaughs, the Alex Joneses and shit like that, are, he's out there saying there's interdimensional child molesters are out there working for Hillary Clinton and doing all this shit. And then, when so much of that turns out to be bunk, and then you realize that his god, Donald Trump, is out here enabling and empowering and a piece of an actual cabal of people that is actually provably criminally in court has been convicted of this shit. And just silence. Nothing. There's that gets thrown around because it's probably the worst thing that you can do as a person. Pedophilia, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Child rape. And they accuse so many people of doing that, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and all these people, and there's an upsetting amount of times where shit like that is real, Spacey and all these things that keep coming out. But they are part of that same thing.
Right.
And then their biggest weapon is accusing people of doing some shit that they already did. And it is so frustrating to see just nobody who's a big fan of the president, people, these evangelical Christians who can see these ties, this news is out there, and they are unwavering in that. When 6 months ago, or, a couple years ago, when they thought it was Hillary Clinton, who they were told is running a giant, underground sex ring of kids, they were up in arms. They were ready to revolt, as a militia style thing and take down the government. And, they're sending pipe bombs to people, like the U.S. Coast Guard officer who was hoarding weapons and had a plan to assassinate most of the heads of the Democratic Party and media folks. And that story lasted maybe a day or two in the news before it got cycled out for something else.
Right. Well, it's kind of an interesting thing because it seems to be just like everything else, whether it's pedophilia or just about anything. Cognitive dissonance right now in this country or this world is just out of control, where, people have chosen a side and they are not going to listen to anything or, pay attention to any evidence that, supports something that goes against whatever they believe or feel strongly about. And we're seeing that in many more ways than just the presidency as well. Yeah. Right now with the whole Michael Jackson thing, with the whole leaving Neverland. I mean, that's actually a really I have not seen it yet. I don't know that I want to see it, but I will admit that there's a part of me that, wants to say that, yeah, dude, this whole time, I think we all knew and just didn't want to admit it. And it's going to be really hard for people, especially with that one, because he was such an iconic and so such a big thing in their lives to accept what's being brought out about him,
and really irreplaceable. This is the most challenging one for me, where it's, and I think all of us can experience this, and that okay, in certain things I can live without hearing R. Kelly again.
Right.
As much as a fan of him as I was, I thought his music was good. I can easily imagine a world of myself where I actively boycott R. Kelly shit because fuck that monster. He should not get any percentage of a penny from any stream that I ever fucking listened to this guy,
Yeah, and he's just blatantly
But Michael, that's
manipulative and everything. Just you could see it in every bit of him.
Honestly, there is a level of malevolence, of fucking straight evil in that man's heart, which absolutely exists in Michael.
Yeah,
but there was something sick in like the sadistic joy that he took in inflicting the pain, which I guess you could probably also say for a lot of them. But maybe I'm doing it right now. Maybe I'm characterizing him in a worse way.
Well, it's interesting because you have to observe that it's different, but it's still it is in a way justifying what they're doing when it's still completely wrong because of the fact that you don't want it to be true. You don't want it to be, Michael Jackson, that's like the hardest fucking thing. It's like what you grew up with. But, and what you idolized and music wise, it's like, you love his music still. And
there's no other Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
There's nobody that comes
and
close,
so, really. When you listen to it, you're going to have to make the choice and say, hey, well, fuck, do I really want to support this person's music? Even though it's, it's becoming more and more of an argument for like, we should no longer be separating the art from the person. But I think that varies. I do think that varies. If it's something that has to do with, this like child pornography or, pedophilia or anything, murder, anything like that, rape, that's one thing. But if it's somebody like Kanye West who's just a fucking idiot, and just says stupid shit, that's different because I will say I don't give a shit. I like his music. I don't give a fuck what he says. And I think that I'm justified in saying that,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So of course. Do you want to come here?
On what?
On like the songs and their music, like Michael Jackson, like Quincy Jones now is kind of like wrapped up in that, and all the producers and writers.
Are the people that are the
So, like,
for
he
if
gets
that
to write the music.
so if that wasn't picked up on the mic, what about all the people that worked on this stuff and wrote the music and were actually probably actively a part of this team that empowered and enabled him? Like, that's a good point. Where do we draw the line?
But did they know what he was doing at Neverland Ranch? I mean, is that I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But I mean,
there's no there's nothing in the documentary that I think explicitly wraps anybody else into this. But there's no way that like people knew, though. At least people on his team knew. And if we've all known, quote unquote, not the details and things like that, had suspicions, this has been out there for a very long time. It's not the first time this has come out. There's a willful ignorance that I think a lot of us, myself included, probably myself especially, that we've all kind of just turned the blind eye towards. Like, how culpable are we and how culpable are the people around him? Yeah, that's a good question. I think, Michael Jackson doesn't book the hotel rooms for the kids' parents. So when they keep getting booked in rooms farther and farther away from Michael's room, so that the parents are suddenly across a complex and the kids are staying with him in their room, like, other people were enabling this behavior. There were people who worked at Neverland Ranch. Though he did his best to keep everybody away from him and keep things private, there are absolutely people who kind of enabled this. And like, Michael Jackson was an entire industry to himself, like, there are people's livelihoods and jobs and shit like that. Like, there was all this shit. The most haunting part about that shit is that you can see the parents of the kids who they talk to and talk about their experience.
That's what I was going to bring up right now. Like, aren't they in some way responsible themselves for allowing it to happen?
100%. And you watch the documentary and it's hard not to lay a lot of the blame on them, but also, we can, in a way, see the, how blinded by the celebrity and the sudden going from living a very normal, middle-class, unremarkable life in Australia to suddenly being mega pop stars and just inundated with, and being surrounded by celebrity and everything being, all these other aspects of it being so good, like how they were hypnotized by that. And how they knew they knew some part of them
So
knew,
the
but
parents
didn't
were
want
from
to
the
believe.
families were from Australia. You're saying?
At least one of them was.
Okay.
They were from all over. It follows two main kids. I think one was from Australia and one was. I don't recall the other one, but it's
Was Macaulay Culkin in that video or the movie?
no. No.
No.
Fuck, I feel like we missed like the last. It's like a 2-part series.
Huh.
And I don't think we watched the second like half of it. But no, I don't believe he makes a appearance in that.
Got it.
And there's a lot of people that have come out and said like, hey, well, he didn't molest me, like Macaulay Culkin and what's his name, one of the Coreys. And it's like, okay, yeah, but like the point that people brought up is like, yeah, they're peers too, and actually I fully believe that there's probably a lot of like there's a part of Michael Jackson that actually did believe a lot of this stuff. And for a while I think that was something that I told myself as well, that like, okay, like Michael Jackson was chemically castrated by Joe Jackson and was abused his whole life, and an Arrested Development at that age, to me, I wanted to believe that was plausible.
What do you mean he was chemically castrated? He was like he chemically induced him to where he wasn't able to like fuck or what?
And hit puberty. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how his voice and everything was so high.
What the fuck?
And it had to have fucked with his brain too.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Joe, like that was a theory that I had read like a long time ago.
That is now proven.
And yeah, and then on Joe Jackson's deathbed or shortly around his death, like that came out. Like, okay, yeah, Joe Jackson actually did chemically castrate Michael so that he could continue his like career beyond just his adolescence. Because if he was growing up and growing out of him being able to actually sing and move like that and sing in that voice, if he were to hit puberty and lose his voice like that, that was it. And so that fucking monster like resorted to that shit, which ruined him, in so many ways for his entire life. As would it's fucking hard enough being a kid who becomes a superstar. We've seen that story 1,000 times over. Now you're going to actually fuck with his brain chemistry and his, his ability to make hormones and have a normal life. Yeah, some horrible shit came from that. Yeah, it's rough. There's been a lot of fucking horrifying things yesterday, and I think it has inspired a difficult yet important conversation. In me especially too. I'm just like, damn. I have a real hard time seeing myself being able to actually boycott, Michael Jackson's music.
Right.
That's a tough decision. I don't even want to say that I'm going to, because I don't know. That's tough. And then it seems so silly. Like, fuck, he hurt so many people. Like, and it's just music, but it's important to some people, man. And we brought up a good point during the break that like, what about all the people who were actually around him that made this shit? What about Quincy Jones, who's producing music and things like that? And it's not just Michael too. So there is an aspect of like not condemning work that isn't just exclusively his either.
Right.
And so I mean it's.
But has there been any sort of like proof whatsoever that there was collusion in that, or like that there was
There's been nothing to suggest that somebody like, sorry Quincy, but somebody like Quincy Jones knew anything about that.
Right.
I had to keep using his name because
sure,
he's a goddamn legend.
I mean, the people.
Respect.
It would make more sense like if it was the people who like his agents and people who
those are the people
like the people that are really close to him. But like somebody who's Quincy Jones who works with him in the studio probably wouldn't know that. So I think it's also important not to just kind of like jump to or assume that everybody that's worked with them musically would be like that. I do wonder what they think about it though. And like anybody like Paul McCartney or Quincy Jones or anybody who's ever like done anything with him, like what would they say? Like, would they denounce their own music that they made with them? Would they denounce their own song?
Probably not. And should they? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is something that like is something that it was easy for me to believe and feel passionate about when it's like, oh, fuck Bill Cosby and his body of work because he's a goddamn monster. Let's throw it out. It's easier. It's not easier, but it's easy to say fuck R. Kelly and do that. But now that I'm faced with one that's so real, I'm just like, oh, maybe I'm a huge hypocrite. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I can.
Everybody's got their limit, I guess, you know, or this thing that really just you have a soft spot for.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to accept our own shortcomings and maybe be.
It's also important to note that, you know, some things, they're really just, it's not as easy as you think to make a decision. Like a lot of people say that you should, but there's a lot of things that, you know, it's okay to say, well, I don't know, and not to like dismiss it, but, you know, it's to not just jump right away and be like, hey, like, fuck that, fuck this, because the more I find out like about stuff, like I hear, it's a lot of hearsay. So I hear from somebody this, I hear from somebody that, and then, you know, a couple of weeks later it gets proven that, oh, well, that didn't actually happen, or this actually isn't true. And so, you know, the fact that I'm not there, and we live in an age where, you know, fucking fake news and all kinds of crap is all over the place, and you're just like, like, I don't know what to believe anymore unless I'm going to research and fact check like every single thing that comes up, you know, 5 times over. And so it's almost like, not to say that I'm dismissing it, but you kind of do. You're kind of like, well, what the fuck? It sucks, but there are so many other things in my particular life that I need to pay attention to, that particular issue that doesn't directly concern me, even though it does concern society as a whole.
Yeah. And
it's important to at some point think about it, you know, but in like the heat of the moment, you know, it's good not to go and be a fucking Randy Marsh and just fucking, you know, just like jump on the fucking the hate train or something for something, or you know, the bandwagon for something else.
Yeah. It's, you know, not popping off over every little thing, not being super easy to jump to the conclusion.
Yeah.
But, you know, at a certain point too, that this is the struggle, and fuck Rupert Murdoch forever, and Roger Ailes in particular, because they've injected this idea into the culture that is questioning and muddying the waters for everything. Everything. You know, we don't trust sources. We can't trust anything because there are people out there who actually are deliberately out there to misinform. You know. And when it's been proven over and over again, it makes it so much easier for people to say, okay, this is what I believe. And okay, this version of facts that I've been presented suits my worldview. So I'm going to go with that. And the rest is fake news. Yeah. You know, confirmation bias. Exactly. All of us do it. There's nobody that is not there. I fucking went through a bout of this myself, actually, while we were on a break with Jussie Smollett. You know, are you familiar with that story? Yeah. So Jussie Smollett,
because that's a good point. That is a good point, because there is, you know, even on the left side, even though like as a whole, you can agree with, you know, everything that progressively that, you know, they stand for, but you can't deny that there is still a confirmation bias just as much as there is with, you know, people, not just as much maybe, but, you know, there definitely is. And that's a perfect example, because I even saw people that went and they were posting articles to say that it was a hoax, you know, that it, you know, that it was actually, no, they're just, they started doing the whole Alex Jones thing, and they say, well, that's what they want you to think. That's what they're trying to do right now. That's what well, who is they? What do you mean? They're, you know, they've got this guy and they refuse to believe or accept that, like, that he actually could fake that there are liberal people, at least, or whether they really are that way, that they stand on this side, that, you know, are capable of being monsters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and one of the biggest things that I, you know, have been, you know, feeling very strongly about is making sure that victims should be believed, because the rate of people faking things like Jussie Smollett is so insanely low compared to the amount of times things actually happen. Now apply that to just about, you know, anything. Most specifically, it's this fucking debate, which I can't believe is debate, over rape versus false allegations of rape, as if they're both two equal sides. And I think that's fucking preposterous. And not saying that, like, you know, falsely accusing somebody of some shit or you know, orchestrating some shit like Jussie Smollett did is anything good, or like that's fucking horrible. But, you know, I think it is, you know, I'm not I'm not ashamed that I jumped to his defense and said this is fucking awful and a sign of things being terrible in this country. And when that ends up being fake, you know, I feel
it's hard not to believe that
the
it was
knee-jerk reaction is embarrassment and just like, holy shit, how could you do this? But now, okay, he's been exposed for what he is, and fuck him. Fuck him for setting everything back farther,
using a movement to fucking benefit himself. And
what's crazy is that he actually was doing good work. Like, he actually was an activist and actually doing the real work before this.
He got caught up.
That was doing it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're fans of it. We had tickets to his show. Like,
so what does he do? I'm not familiar.
He's like an R&B singer but he's also one of the stars of the show Empire.
Okay, I knew he was on the show, but still he's got his own music
He
career.
actually is a musical artist, and his music is actually good.
Do you think it's gonna still go on strong, or do you think?
Oh no, hell no. Yeah. I think anybody who buys a ticket to his show you should be embarrassed for yourself, because that's like,
I don't know, man. There's the Pee Hive right now too, bro. There's still people that are out there fucking supporting R. Kelly.
The Pee Hive.
You haven't heard that? I saw that in a meme today. It was funny that they called the supporters of R. Kelly the Pee Hive.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Man. And it's gonna be hard to not make that the goddamn episode title. But yeah, no, that's it's difficult. There's been a lot of like I think it's important because we need to recognize when we are also hypocrites, and we need to be self-policed too. Make sure that like that what we're doing, and constantly reevaluate the way that we think about things, and the way that this righteous fight that everybody's on. Nobody more self-indulgent and about that kind of shit than myself included. That we take a second to just make sure that the confirmation bias isn't too strong, or that we're not letting some shit go that should actually be reevaluated.
We are human after all.
We are human. I think it's important to acknowledge our own fucking shortcomings. And in mine, that Neverland documentary, that's made me had to rethink some shit. Maybe, I'm wrong. I can be wrong. I absolutely have the capacity to be wrong. I've been wrong on the show before, and I will be wrong again.
Yeah. That's also important to note too, as I've said before in other episodes. I might say something, or we might say something here in one episode and have a particular view, and it might come out that we've changed our mind. And as long as we acknowledge that we've changed our mind and not act like we've always taken that stance, the corrected stance, because that is an important thing. I mean, I think if you don't have circumstances like that you can point out, then you're not really growing as a person. If you don't have very cringe-worthy moments in your life, if you don't look back in photos from like 5 or 6 years ago and just absolutely cringe at the style that you had, or
fuck me.
Oh man,
I got too excited. I wrote that down and then I fucking hit pause for a second. I just missed like 2 words of that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So where did it leave off at?
If you don't cringe, you're not growing. If you're not looking at old photos, and that made me laugh because I can think of some fucking terrible photos of myself.
It's true.
On my MySpace when I was 14 that I have buried on the internet forever.
Yeah.
Burned them with fire. I drilled holes through my old hard drive. I'm seeing how much you're enjoying this on the couch over there. Don't even think about trying to find that shit.
Oh man, no. I even just from a couple years ago, it's funny how fast things go in your life, and time flies, because you're just like. You get to a point where you're like, yeah, you're seasoned and you've seen it all, you've done it all, and you've already been at this state that you've come to. But you look back just a couple of years ago and you're like, man, I was such a fucking noob at this, or I was such a fucking weenie. Like, I look at the way I was dressed or the way I acted, and you just know that you're going to do that again in 5 years. Look back at now and you're just like, ugh. And I think that that's an important thing that, you should be able to do, because that means you're growing. Simply like that, you're growing and you're getting wiser. Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I think one day this show will be its own vessel for our own, our own way to measure growth. And probably, there will be more than a few times where we could probably look back at episodes already and be like, oh, fuck. Oh.
Well, that's why people ask me, they assume that I listen to all the episodes. And I'm like, no, man, I actually lived it. I talked it. And to me, it was a conversation. I kind of don't want to go back, because then I become not right away anyways. I know that later
Mm-hmm.
on we'll go back and that it'll serve that exact purpose that we were just discussing, you know, like that it'll just, you know, prove to me how much we've grown and what we've been able to accomplish from bringing up these topics and you know, trying to hopefully reach other people with them too. But to go back so soon and just listen to them, I feel like that would just make me overly critical and want to just change things already, you know? So I think that it kind of helps to just wait a little bit.
As, you know, somebody in a creative field or as an artist, I think it at times can be very beneficial, more beneficial than anything, to not think about your own shit too hard.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's their own worst critic. And if you're like, oh man, like, did the way I say salad come off weird? Shit, maybe I
Totally.
should really think about the way I say salad. And then everything becomes so robotic and thought and like this. And you know, there's a balance.
Yeah.
You know, there's a smoothness, there's a state of flow that I think
Exactly.
everybody needs
Flow
to be
is
able
the
to
good
tap
word.
into.
Yeah.
Because it's the balance between not being prepared at all
Right.
and not having any idea what the fuck you're doing.
Right.
And thinking way too hard and trying to be over prepared.
Yeah.
And it taking you out of the moment and you being, you know, able to produce something naturally.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe actually being over prepared is the way somebody works. You know, I'm not saying that that's
Some
that's
people
the wrong
are
way
good
to
at
do
it. It really does depend on the medium, you know, and with what we're doing. And with me, I've been known, and I know that you do the same thing too, where I just am overloaded with projects and overloaded with things because I have way more ideas than I have the actual capacity to accomplish all of these things. And so I just do what I can. And I know that a lot of people are like, no, you got to do your best. And it's like, well, it is my best for what I can do. You know, I am putting the best in the moment, but I'm not overthinking it. I'm not trying to overdo it. Like I don't have the physical or mental capacity to like sit there and plan out every single thing that I do. And so that's when we come on the podcast.
And,
you know,
and if you did, it wouldn't be good.
it wouldn't
you
be,
know?
you know, and that exactly. And so that's why I think it started for me with that when I came back from Europe and I actually started working on music. Because prior to actually working with Little Black Bear and Coyote and making the album that we had, I would say that anything I did artistically was way too critical. Like I was just way too critical of everything that I did and couldn't get anywhere. Like I hated every single song that I had ever tried to write, and I couldn't really get a genuine or sincere thought out. And you know, it's hard because you care what other people think, you know, instead of like how you feel. You don't hit that state of flow.
Yeah.
It's once you learn how to hit that state of flow, it becomes easier to allow yourself to, you know, implement that into just about everything else that you do. And then so you can just let it bleed.
Exactly. No, that is actually the real meaning, the central thesis of what I've made my own personal brand, which is nobody cares. It's not just a problem that I see with society at large and that people don't care about shit, but it's also the most freeing insight I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
In that being so self-critical and thinking about shit so much, thinking what are people gonna say about this, blah, 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 and then realizing like, wait a minute. Do you notice those things in other people? If you did, do you really give a shit about, you know, if they didn't quite get this right, you know?
No, it kind of makes you more
Oh.
upset if they try too hard.
Yeah, you're just like, oh man, I don't really care. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw the little mistake there, but shit, that was impressive, man. That was cool. Like when I realized, oh, that's how I feel about everything and everybody. I'm like, oh, like that's probably the way everybody sees my shit. And the 50, things that I saw wrong with whatever I was doing, literally nobody else noticed because nobody's thinking about you as much as you do.
Nobody
You know?
cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that's the most freeing fucking insight and thing I've ever realized in my life was that, oh shit, nobody really cares what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Really, nobody really cares. A very small circle of people or something like that. But really, nobody does. And so why stress the fuck out about it, thinking everybody's going to care about all this shit when, hey, they don't. It's, that's freedom right there.
Yeah.
That's being able to express yourself and do what the fuck you want to do and just own it, I don't always, there's a couple different theories of it. Sometimes I know I fucked up something and I made a mistake, I just won't say anything. And nobody ever notices. Or I said something, I realized I fucked up, I made a mistake. And now my favorite thing really to do is say, oh shit, I fucked up and made a mistake, and make that a part of it. You know?
Yeah.
Make that part of the fun.
Laugh at yourself.
Exactly. And that's just the most, like, personally for me, is like just growing as a person. That was one of the best things I ever fucking realized. And so, yeah. And so, you know, the good thing is that now that I'm trying to find this balance to where I have, you know, a natural thing where things aren't scripted. Because when things are scripted, I have a hard time not reading it like a script, you know?
Right.
But, you know, bullet points and things like that, ideas, shit, I'm like, okay, how the fuck do I transition out of this? Boom. I came prepared today. I've got shit to talk about. And when I'm going, okay, well, I mean, this thing is like fucking 8 pages here, which it doesn't need to be. There's a lot of shit. It's a lot of copy and paste. I didn't try that hard, okay? Don't set your expectations too high at me. But I'm like, okay, I'm like, yo, let's switch to something fun, because I've seen some good shit this week. I feel like I went through a giant drought pretty much the whole time we were off, where there was nothing good out there. I finished all the like shows I like, and then I feel like in the last like 4 or 5 days, I've just been fucking like banging out with random shit that I'd never heard of before. That was dope as shit. And so actually, I wanted to trade you. Okay,
Go for it.
I will watch Letterkenny.
Because
we were fucking around on Netflix the other day and went to this like related thing to a really related thing, and we found this like weird British like multicam sitcom, or no, not multicam, fucking, you know, single cam show called Man Like Mobeen. And that shit was hilarious, man. And it was fucking fascinating to see this show that was so, it felt like a very, you know, American show. It felt like a show that could be here, but everything culturally and things like that, it was just so well done, so well written. It was clearly like it's a, you know, a British comic who I'd never heard of, who like has his own show about him and around him, you know. And it was just brilliant, you know. It was legitimately super funny, and it was a perspective of a dude who's he's a Muslim dude in the UK, and you know he's you know, he hangs out with like I wish I knew more about British culture so that I could accurately describe it, but it's like the hip hop culture in UK.
Okay.
You know, people that say shit like bruv, like like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm probably actually being super reductive because, you know, it makes sense when you see it, but it's just it's brilliant, man. And it's
I wonder if it would be super. So did you look at a related thing to Letterkenny?
I don't remember.
Was it...
You found it. Oh shit, she's doing an oil pull. So of course now's the time when we actually ask her questions and to participate in the show, when she is doing it. It's a teeth cleaning thing. So
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, you know, so
but yeah, it was
called what again?
Man Like Mobeen. Mobeen,
and it's on Netflix.
Or Mobeen. Yeah, it's on Netflix. There's 2 seasons of it, and there's only like 4 episodes, and the episodes are like 30 minutes apiece. So we cranked through it in one night. But I was like, damn, like this is dope. It's a really well done show. And so shout out to the fucking dude. I think his name's like Gaz something. But you know, he was good. And so I was like, okay, if you watch that shit, I'll watch Letterkenny. All right, you're hearing it first. I'll commit to that shit. You know,
nice.
Because I'm like, oh man, I thought about you too. I'm like, oh man, this is probably just like Letterkenny's probably just like this shit. It's some Canadian shit. If I'm gonna make this recommendation, I'm gonna have to concede.
Okay, I'll check it out. I mean, I do watch a lot of television. I've run out of things to kind of watch. I just finished The Umbrella Academy, which has been really popular. I'm not a big. How was
that? We watched the first 5 minutes and we're just like, I think we're going to be really happy if we just fucking bail now and never waste our time on this shit.
I think you were right. I think that it was really visually, you know, it was entertaining and pretty to watch, but it was also story-wise absolutely like frustrating because there were just so many plot holes. The timeline was super fucking weird. There were just characters. Well, none of the characters were really extremely likable. Like the one character that you kind of liked a lot, you know, it was still a letdown. And this is all very unpopular opinion because so many people are just like in love with it, you know. And I guess they have.
That's the first sign of trouble.
They've had like, you know, the affinity for the comic books that I didn't even know existed.
I never heard of it
until, you know, until they came out. But there's just so many cliche, like
It felt
imagining
very paint
thing.
by numbers.
It was just,
Shit, man.
it was
Watching the
just
trailer,
like
I could
the imagination behind it wasn't very imaginative, and it was just like predictable in so many ways. But yet, like I said, there's so many plot holes and so many things that just don't make sense. And the characters were just like there were several characters in there that just didn't need to be there whatsoever. So overall, I'd say that it was, like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It's not good enough to be great, but not campy enough to be fun.
Yeah.
It really felt like it rode that line in the middle to where I'm just like, I would feel like I would be frustrated by the end of it.
Just over-exaggerated
I'd waste
stuff,
my
too.
time. Like I wasted my time and shit like that. To where there's actually like some shit that she has been watching recently that I've been watching now, and I've seen a bunch of it now, is Supernatural, which that show it's bad. It's not good, but holy shit, I love it. It's so much fucking fun because it's just insane. And
Is that a WB show?
It's a CW show.
Well,
yeah,
that's the
it's
same
a CW
thing,
show.
right?
Yeah, but like they know the show is like not good, and so they have fun with it and shit like that.
Right.
Like, and they've been doing it for 13 fucking seasons, and we started in like season 3, and like by season 5, they're already doing an episode where they get transported into this crazy mythical world where they're just themselves, like the actors' names, walking around the set and talking to like the director and like the writer and shit like that. And it's like,
so
it's just like, damn, you guys already gave up on ideas like that at this point. I'm just like, fuck, they just lean into it, and it's so bad, it's brilliant. So I
guess, I've had a rule of thumb for a while now, which is like anything that's on a major network that's, like our CW,
the CW and CBS,
or CBS, TNT, stuff like that. I'm just kind of like, nah,
yeah,
it pass,
yeah.
Ever since the days of like, when people are like, oh, you don't watch Gotham, you don't watch Green Arrow. I'm like,
why?
Don't like. I don't.
Who wants to watch a show about Batman but without the Batman?
A lot of people.
A
lot of people tell me like, "Oh, you're missing out. It's a great show." And I'm like, there's so much television out there, and there are so many good shows. Why would you waste your time on stuff that like lasts forever like that?
Looking at a 13-year-old Catwoman. Like, who the fuck cares? Why are they already supervillains?
Yeah,
like that. Shows make me fucking. Okay.
So
I'm gonna get myself literally worked up and angrier than I have been about any other topic, talking about how fucking dumb the show Gotham probably is. I've never seen it. Yeah. Oh man, okay.
I'm trying to think of what else that I have seen that's really good though. I started The Order, which is entertaining enough. I actually think that it's kind of cooler in some ways than Sabrina, which was out. Like a lot of people liked Sabrina.
I haven't seen either of them.
I kind of thought it was very
the
boring.
cover intrigued us. And we clicked on the thing because it's just like a dude in a cloak wearing like a deer skull, and we're just like, oh, what's this? And then we click on it, and then the next picture of it, and then the description was just the corniest like Umbrella Academy style, like everybody lined up and ready to fight, and it's just like, oh, okay, no, never mind.
Yeah,
this shit looks bad.
It had that same element too. But yeah,
but I've seen some great shit though lately.
Like what?
Okay. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is this movie that we saw, Thunder Road. I guess it won Sundance this year and shit like that. It's like this weird, dark comedy about a cop dealing with the loss of his own mother and like being like divorced, and there's just this really like just very strange, corny dude. But this guy, the guy who plays him, I guess, wrote and directed the whole thing. And I'm just like, holy shit, this guy's fucking brilliant. Like a brilliant comedic actor who was never, I don't think he's done anything else. It was just this.
And where can you find this movie?
We got it on Showbox. So I'm sure it's one of those where it's like, okay, we'll probably see it. It's probably like on demand somewhere. If you want to figure out how to get Showbox, you can go ahead and do that. It's one of those things that will probably be on Netflix in like a year or some shit. And then, it'll find like its own little cult fan base from there or something. But yeah, Thunder Road, fucking fantastic film. So I recommend that. But my new favorite show that we've been watching is, have you seen Black Monday?
No.
Okay, it's a new Showtime series with Don Cheadle.
Okay.
And it's about the crash in like the late 80s of Wall Street.
I saw a trailer for that a while ago.
Dude, it's the funniest fucking thing I've seen in a long ass time. It's brilliant, man.
I need to upgrade the Hulu, which I got for free now since I'm a Spotify premium member.
I just got an email about that.
Yeah,
People with Spotify get Hulu for free now.
Yep, but
I'm
we
like,
don't
fuck
get
yeah.
the like show. We
Oh,
have
yeah,
to
they don't
pay
give you the
extra
premium
for that,
ones.
so I got to
Yeah.
get the Showtime thing going. But
Get a new email address, get that free trial, and it's like a mini series. So just fucking get it.
I don't like
watch
free
them all.
trials because they make. Is it one of those ones where they'll automatically roll it over and start charging you? Because I just had to go through a dispute recently for some shit like that, and I'm
Just remember to cancel it, man.
Bro,
it's not
I
that
learned-
hard. Set an alarm.
I learned my
This
lesson.
one drives me crazy because she's like some of them will be like, okay, this is gonna stop at 12:31 on that day, and she'll be like, it's like 11:45. She's like, yo, I still got time for one more episode. I'm like, what are you doing?
Dude, I got fucking for a resume building website that I used one time where it was like, okay, this costs like $1 or $2, and I hadn't made done a resume in forever. I worked at a restaurant forever, and like I just was there, and then got another job. So I made this resume, paid like $1 or $2 to like fucking use their templates or whatever, and had no idea that for like 8 months they were charging me. And guess how much they were charging me a month for a resume building website? That like, who the fuck uses a resume building website every day like that? Are you a professional for a resume? Yeah, I didn't even know this because it was on my credit card. It wasn't even on my checking account. And I kept wondering, why am I getting all of these overage fees and everything? And luckily it like was just, I was able to dispute it, but $24 to $27 a month.
What the fuck?
Yeah, for a resume building website.
Oh shit,
bro.
Those are con men.
Yeah,
straight up.
Yeah,
they fucking do that shit. They get you a free service, but they make it kind of weird and confusing and hard to fucking cancel.
But it was an easy dispute though, because it did not take long. It took like 2 days, and they were just like, okay, yeah, you got your refund back for all of these days. And
okay, that's good. But
that's
Jesus
relief.
Christ,
yeah,
that shit fucking. It pisses me off.
Blows my mind. Like, who the fuck is gonna pay $27 for a resume building website like a month? And like I said, I don't even recall agreeing to this.
Yeah, maybe you did. It's probably in the fine print somewhere, and they're really obtuse about the way they write it. Fuck, I've got a new client who just kind of went through a similar thing, and she's like, yeah, I've been working with this other like digital marketing agency for years now, and I'm not sure what they do. And just like, hey, can you take a look at this stuff? And I'm looking at like her contracts and the way that they've like, messed around, the way that they operate and the things they ask for. Holy shit, they've been fucking you over by a lot, like out of thousands of dollars for years. Wow. It's crazy. You should not be paying $90 a month for a site that looks like it's from fucking GeoCities. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are some goddamn con men out there. And they know that they can hide behind, contracts that nobody's going to read, Looking at Apple. I've been doing that more recently. I've actually been one of the nerds who's actually like reading the fucking iTunes user agreement before I fucking hit send. I'm not just hitting okay to everything anymore because I'm looking at like privacy policies and shit like that, because some of the shit that they mine and capture is just not cool. I don't want that shit out there. I don't want them fucking following me with this shit and passing around all my information.
Like just things. Thinking about this shit, because I am so not savvy
That's
whatsoever
literally
when it comes
my
to
job
stuff.
is to give people anxiety. Why the fuck do you think I started this show? It's the only way I can come anymore. Jesus Christ, man. Yeah. So it's rough. Yeah.
But so back to the good shows. You said Black Monday.
Black Monday, my favorite show that I've seen in a while. It's a limited series. It's so fucking funny, dude. I like the urge to fucking spill so many of the jokes are fucking killing me. But it's Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg too.
Oh.
Yeah. They wrote and did the whole thing. Just, Regina Hall, Don Cheadle, fucking all these like, major comedy peoples like, Brown Holler and Ken Marino and all these people who are just.
Ken Marino's hilarious.
He's fucking hilarious. He plays the Lehman Brothers in the 1980s. Like the giant financial guys, and they are hysterical. Like
I could tell that's a perfect role for him.
So here's one joke I'll give away is, Don Cheadle walks into the room, he's like, oh, okay, hey, put your dicks away, like, quit fucking each other. When he like bursts into the room, it's like, quit fucking each other for a second so we can have a conversation. And they're just like, and then they all of a sudden just get immediately super defensive, like, we never fucked each other. That is a lie, okay? You cannot. And then he's just like, what? Yeah. And they're like, obviously, we're brothers. We wouldn't fuck each other, right? Yeah, we wouldn't fuck each other. And then Don Cheadle's like, yeah, that would be insane. You're brothers. Why would you fuck each other? And they're just like, yeah. Yeah, so what are you here for? It's shit like that, and trust me, I'm not doing it justice because those are
Classic
dudes who are 1,000 times funnier than I will ever be.
Marino from like Role Models when he's like, oh yeah, he fucked his cousin. Oh, I didn't fuck my cousin. I fucked her friends though. I fucked her friends.
Exactly, it's that kind of shit, dude. Yeah, so the show's fucking fantastic. You love it. There's a lot of people that would love it.
I've been hearing a lot of good things about this show called American Gods. I think that's what it's called.
What?
American Gods?
Fuck, I feel like I've heard of that.
I've been hearing that it's... I kind of don't even know exactly what I would say because nobody's really wanted to spoil much, and it seems like it's a comedy based on what was the little bit that was described to me, but it's also not. Like, it's kind of like... I have no idea, but I want to see it.
It's one of those ones that like kind of rides the line.
Yeah,
you know?
Apparently though, it's something very unique and interesting, and it's another one of those things I have to figure out how to access because I'm not good at that shit.
Okay. No, I will. That's the kind of thing I like. You know, just probing for shit, just to see if something's good. You know, I've found some other things that are like good, but I haven't watched enough of it to like officially recommend it. But like, I'm Sorry is another show that I started watching that was actually really good. I've seen a few episodes.
Oh
of.
Yeah, dude. Is that what's her name?
With Andrea Savage.
Yeah,
and
that's a good one.
And Jason Mantzoukas. Okay.
Yeah,
like,
that's a great one.
Like,
I like that show a lot. There was that one, and then there was one called Fleabag that was a British one with, I forget her name, but you kind of hate her and love her at the same time because she's just so like, she's kind of like a shitty person, but not really. You feel bad for her because she's just like, you know.
On that note, I've been watching this show called SMILF that, like, you know, from the trailers, I wouldn't have given anything about, but I would say exactly the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
You're just like, you don't know quite how to feel about him. It's a comedy, but kind of a comedy. You know, there's other good
like
moments.
Some anti-hero
in
shit.
it. Yeah, some
know?
anti-hero shit, you know? Some real shit, you know, real depictions of people.
The raw
you know?
stuff pointing out.
And that, like, all of us have, everybody has done some shitty things, or at least has the capacity to do shitty things, even if you're not shitty people, you know, something realistic about that.
Right.
You know, none of us are beyond that shit. And so shit like that, I like. What was that one called?
That was called Fleabag.
Fleabag.
Yeah. It was pretty good because she's, you know, a female feminist, but like she also kind of like, you know, points out her own hypocrisy in a lot of ways too, with what she's doing. But like she's just very real and very raw, and like it's very empowering though for women because it's like, you know, it's going along with a lot of shows right now where it's showing, you know, things that you would have never seen, stuff that would have been taboo to talk about, or just like whatever, you know, like they just wouldn't talk about, like, you know, this also reminds me of another fucking hilarious show, Pen 15. This looks
Pen
like
15 Club? Is that
penis or whatever? Like, well, that's what it looks
or
like.
Or is it just Pen 15?
It's
okay,
Pen
I've heard of
15, but
this.
it looks like, I mean, it's supposed to be like you're in junior high and you're, you know, reading this. And the reason why this show is, it's so awkwardly hilarious, and it's awkward as fuck because it's these girls who are literally our age, you know, my age, 31 years old, that are playing themselves in high school or junior high. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
As as freshmen in high school. So is it junior high? No, I think that they're
something like the boys are clearly
they're
obviously older.
They're playing 13-year-old selves, and like one of them, I mean, they both pass for it. Although one of them's like, okay, you're way taller and like hit puberty, the other like before everybody else, but then one of them is just like, what the fuck? And so you just have to think about the fact that they're acting with these little kids. And like in very awkward, like you know, coming of age type situations, you know, especially like pointing out like, you know, girls going through puberty, sort of like just very awkward shit, but hilarious too. Okay. But like I think that, you know, it's definitely something that girls would love because they could relate to it a lot.
Yeah, dude, you just reminded me of another movie that I saw that it's in that similar fashion that I saw. It was probably a couple months ago now. It's a movie called Eighth Grade. It was actually written and directed by Bo Burnham, and it's not a funny movie, but it's like this really, you know, sort of heart-wrenching, like hard to watch it a lot of times, like, you know, depiction of what like following this girl who was in eighth grade, and she's like graduating from junior high and going into high school, but just like I'd never really seen what seemed so fucking real and authentic depiction of like what kids, you know, go through now. and that like we've experienced a part of that, and like being when we were around that age was when MySpace was getting to be a thing and shit like that. And so social media kind of doing that, but seeing how much the culture and technology has kind of advanced since then, and how that fucking feeds into like the psyche of what like a little girl like that would go through. So it's a brutal movie. I don't know if I would recommend everybody to watch it, but it was interesting, and it was very powerful. It told a good story. So that shit was on that note, it was fucking crazy.
Yeah, there's a ton. There's never a shortage of shit out there to watch.
Yeah, man. Sure. I feel like we've got like a couple months of shit to like catch each other up on and shit like that. Because I'm looking through here, I'm like SMILF, which I would describe exactly like you just described Fleabag, and fucking. Have you seen Paddleton on Netflix?
No, I saw the trailer for it, and that's the movie, right?
With Ray Romano and Mark Duplass. Yeah.
I don't know why when I see Ray Romano and something, I'm just kind of like, I don't know that this is gonna be worth watching.
I have this like resurgence of love for Ray Romano because I feel like he's just popped up again in a bunch of different things, and he's been brilliant. Like in this movie, he was great, and I saw his Netflix special that he just put out. Also, it was really fucking good. And so no, like I've got like a new respect for Ray Romano, like and not the like, oh, it's a sitcom guy.
But it's not. Is it not one of those types of movies that's like more just what's the word that I'm thinking of? Like not directly hilarious, kind of just makes you feel bad. Like you just kind of feel
it's
like
a
darker
down
movie.
For sure.
Like
yeah, but ultimately I did like the central conceit of the movie.
Okay.
It's it's one of those things where it's a real story. I feel like I'm actually watching two characters and two people and how they would actually handle a very difficult and hard situation. And this is just life for people. And I feel like it was expressed in a way that actually was going to be real. And the ultimate thing is, hey, you can go through some of the hardest things in your life and things are going to be okay. This doesn't feel overly romanticized. It doesn't feel like anything, kind of magical happened to save the day to where we get the thing. It's like, no. It's like this is just like a real story of some shit,
What about like High Maintenance or Easy? Have you seen either one of those? I've not
seen either of those.
They're both somewhat similar, although High Maintenance is it's a continuous sort of thing that kind of brings so many different people and how their stories connect. And it's about a drug dealer or pot dealer that goes around and rides his bike, and he meets all these people, and so there's all these interactions, and it just kind of goes into each one's a different story, and they're very real. Easy also is one of those types of shows, although it's every episode is a different one, and they come back into the next season though. So like every episode you'll see another episode in the second season with the same characters from like episode from the first season, though they are different stories. And I think that they kind of somehow connect too, being that they're like in New York. And so
that's cool.
Those are really, really good, real
I like
shows,
like
kind of like the Master of None thing.
Yeah, exactly. That literally popped into my head when you said that.
What about The Russian Doll? Did you see that?
I watched the first. We watched the first, almost the first whole episode. She wasn't really into it. I thought it had it. It seemed to me, I was struck that it was like one of those things where this looks like it's got the potential to be something and say something, but that I don't know what it is. I don't know quite how to articulate it, but this has happened to me so many times where I'm like, whoa, this shit is probably really good and fascinating. And then I get to the end and there's no payoff to any of like the weird shit, and it's just so unsatisfying. I'm almost angry I ever watched it in the first place.
Yeah.
And so we turned it off. Everybody's saying it's good. I think which is usually a sign that like, to me, I might not be into it, but I would be willing to give it a second chance. I'm just not sure yet.
I think you might have already.
Is that right?
I think you might have already felt the right way. I
that's what Velvet Buzzsaw was to me. I don't know if you saw that.
I liked Velvet Buzzsaw, although I liked it for one particular reason, and that is because I work in that sort of world and understand the pretentious pomposity that is in that world. And I think that though it was cheesy and stupid, it was meant to be that way. It was
so over the top. Yeah.
It was meant to be that way, but it was totally just, a metaphor for that world of art dying. Like it's got nowhere else to go but death, because it's because people are starting to care more again about real shit as opposed to just the fucking hoopla that, you know, is the hype that is out there, that people are just throwing these fucking, they're just making ridiculous shit up to sell stuff and for their own gain. And it's not about the art. It's all about what can we sell? What can we, you know, hold to a higher standard than other things? And so it's that whole pretentious bullshit that is to be gone. And like, you know, you see the character like John Malkovich who takes a step back from that sort of thing in the movie, and he's kind of like wants to get back to the real essence of art, and so he like survives and he's there. Not to spoiler alert, whatever, but you know,
it was one of those where I'm like, okay, if you're going to come out this strong, this outrageous, this corny, I feel like I can, from the very beginning of the movie, I'm like, okay, I feel like I do understand the point that this movie is ultimately going to try to make. But like, if you're going to start out this big like that, it better have a just as satisfying ultimate conceit, or, you know, subversion of expectations or something like that. I don't want to be able to, if you're this high up your own ass about being predictable and shit like that, if I can actually predict what you're doing. And like, I feel like it kind of started to lose me towards the third act.
I didn't predict
it started happening.
It wasn't as good as I thought, but like I thought it would.
I this
thought
is
it
not
would
going to
be
be
better.
as good as this movie thinks it is.
But I just watched From Dusk Till Dawn again yesterday, and I forgot how long that movie went after. Like, or I forgot when the last time I got through the whole movie, because, you know, as soon as after Salma Hayek's done dancing and their vampires are just like, okay, like this is a twist. That's about all I need to see. And then, but it really does go on for like almost another 40 to an hour of just really cheesy, bad, like killing vampire scenes.
Dude, one of the most flagrant violators of this idea that I have ever seen, we watched like a week or two ago. Have you seen Vox Lux with Natalie Portman?
No, but I want to because it's Natalie Portman.
Oh man, we have very different tastes. And this movie is like, it started out really good in that, like, it was very like, you know, up its own ass and like about shit. And it was one of those where I'm like, this might be one of those movies that like I don't like, but like we kept watching. I'm like, oh, maybe this is good. Maybe it is getting to something. And then it just like gets to the end and just falls apart. It was kind of, you know, shit. There were,
I loved it.
you loved it. Okay. I was expecting more. And that it is a good, I would recommend people see it, but it's like, it was one of those that just like frustrated me. It ended with the worst concert scene I have ever seen in my life, because Natalie Portman is not a good singer. And the pop songs they produced for her to perform were very bad.
So she was actually singing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was on purpose, but I felt like there should have been more of a crescendo than the way that movie, it just kind of ended. I'm like, oh, okay, all of the things that I thought that they could do to make it poetic and round it out and all the things I was expecting them to surprise me. And then, I mean, I guess they did. And then I'm like, oh, it just ends. Okay.
Well, now I'm kind of worried for you to go back and watch Letterkenny, because I felt that I've built it up too much for you to like not take it for what it is, and accept it and just like, you know, have fun with it.
It's achieved like a meme status for me, and that like my opposition to it is half the fun of the show is that like I refuse to watch it for no other reason than just being
you
stubborn.
and a lot of other people, because I apparently have done the exact opposite of what I wanted to do and turn people onto it, and people are just like, no.
I think people immediately recognized how much more fun it would be to just deny you that, because I know that's what happened with me, and that's probably what happened.
They're doing it to themselves.
It's not really a reflection of the show at all.
Yeah.
Oh man, so that, and I don't remember. Have I talked about Kidding? I'm like at the end of my list here. Finally,
Kidding,
which
No.
the Jim Carrey show.
No,
I finished it. I finished it a while ago, but holy shit,
that's one I've been wanting.
Dude,
to
that
watch
show is
so
brilliant. I feel like you would
much.
love it.
Again,
It's
something I
legitimately very
can't find.
funny. Has a lot of very interesting points. I fucking adore that show. So at least the first season. There's only one season, but that
He
first
has
season
to be,
gets
like,
like full marks.
The most, if not the most, one of the most interesting people of our time. Like when you think about just, I mean, have you seen the art that he does?
Agree more.
Have you seen the art that he does? Like all like I
Are
mean,
you kidding? I get it all, you know, directly fed to my phone immediately the second he posts the shit, man. I fucking love like he's just a very interesting person.
The paintings and all the shit that he does.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like I mean, you know, he's got money and he's got the means to do so, but still, it's like you don't just like it's easy to say that anybody could go do that with that kind of stuff, but it's really not. Like I can't go just like paint. I mean, I was actually blown away because that's just one other thing on top of, and it just seems like there's so many things that come out with him that you wonder where does the act start and stop, because the whole man on the moon thing still trips me out.
I don't think he knows even.
Yeah,
I genuinely respect him as an artist. I think he's one of the few out there.
When does the Terrence McKenna movie come out?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, but I am excited for that though, because I do. I know that he will treat that with a level of respect that will really make it a thing. And especially after Kidding, I'm like, holy shit, that show is it's brilliant. It's fucking incisive. It has a great point. It's funny as hell.
I gotta get my hands on I gotta become savvy enough to learn how to do these things, to do stuff that everybody knows how to do.
Okay. I'll send you a link or some shit with some instructions on how to get some of the shit, so we can be caught up and we can be on the same page and we can talk about this shit, and then that's got to be like a business expense or some shit like that,
Last thing before we go in, because it kind of ties into the global warming thing, I guess, that that we're gonna get into. But have you seen the Beyond the Curve?
No, what's that?
Or is it Behind the Curve or Beyond the Curve? It's the Flat Earth Army documentary where they go into talking about the flat earthers, but it's not like trying to convince you that the earth is flat.
No, I'm just like,
it's more of like
about the phenomenon.
It's about the phenomenon and how it's like just kind of exploded, and basically about cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, all of that stuff. Why people start to believe these things. And it's a very, very important thing, because you can definitely relate it to the whole political climate in this world and everything, just about anything. And I think it's really important to understand the psychology, and that like doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody believes this, it's because they're just batshit crazy or dumb.
It's the same part of our brain.
Yeah, they could be extremely intelligent in so many ways, but there's just one part, like you're saying, your brain that is choosing to believe something because that's what they want to believe. And so there was that, and I highly recommend anybody go and watch that, and then right afterwards start the series One Strange Rock. If you have not started watching,
Will Smith one?
Yeah, that's fucking good. It's like Planet Earth meets the cosmos, but in such a mind-blowingly and visually stunning form. You see these astronauts, like they show images from space where you could actually see the curvature of the earth, and like it shows how they observe all of these things, all of everything that happens in the earth, like how the earth works, like how the seasons come about, like where oxygen comes from, like how we get oxygen, like all of this stuff, and they can see it and observe it from space. Like they see clouds and movements, and they see all of this shit. So, and I'm not even completely finished with it, but it's fucking good.
Oh, that's the kind of thing we throw on when we're high and like ready for bed. Yes. I think we actually did one time, so I feel like I've seen
the first part of the first episode. It and you'll be like, what the fuck?
That sounds like some fun.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
And then watch Off the Air.
Okay.
That is the best tripping shit, hands down, period.
That sounds like a good combination. That sounds like a fun Wednesday morning.
That was my Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So... yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I was kidding. Well, we're at an hour and 15. I really do hate to end it on a downer note, but I've been kind of making this sermon, ever since I was really made aware of this this book by this author David Wallace Wells. He was on Rogan. He was on a bunch of other places as well this week. It was so impactful when I heard him on the show called Why Is This Happening with Chris Hayes. And it was just such a mind fuck. And then like the next day he was on Rogan. I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta listen to this, because this guy is talking about some shit that I think is really, it's changing a lot of people's minds and really surprising, shocking. But there are, it's not that bad, but it's just this alternate look at climate change and really digging into the science around it, and talking about it not in the abstract of like things that we're seeing and things that we've been repeating, and just saying since the 70s that we've got to do something about it. Like the world's, on track for disaster and shit like that. And the sort of nihilism and fatalism that has kind of really crept into the culture because it's like, oh, well, we fucked up. There's not much we can do about it, and there's this weird prevailing idea that, oh man, well, we fucked up, that's it. It's going to happen. So why waste time? And it's this idea that he's not a climate scientist, but he has read all of the climate scientists and really compiled them into a book that I'm actually very interested in checking out called The Uninhabitable Earth. And he talks about where we've been at, where climate science has said we've been, all the new studies that have been done that have projected stuff and said that hey, the people that were saying that this is a slow moving problem and things like that, things are happening that we did not predict, and we are finding out more and more about this shit every day. And things are so much worse than we've ever been told to believe. This is not going to be something that's our grandkids' problem. This is going to be everybody who's alive now will see more of the effects getting worse and worse and worse. That by 2040, I know this was going around a while. I don't know if everybody saw this message. If scientists were saying that okay, in 30 years, the climate will have moved 500 miles north from where it is. So where we're at right now would be Baja, Mexico in 30 years. That will just be how it always is. And San Francisco will become super nice like LA, and everything will be moving northward from there. But all of the shit around the equator is going to be damn near uninhabitable. We're talking about in, certain places in India where the climate in the summer is going to be literally 130 degrees outside, 0% humidity, an unlivable condition to where if you go outside, you'll die. If you spend 5 minutes outside, people can't live like that, So there are actually dire things that we're going to see in our lifetime, gigantic economic impacts and shit like that, from not doing anything, because if we allow all this shit to continue at the rate we're at, things are going to be disastrous. Actually, there is no way that things are not going to be anything that you would call as not disastrous right now. We've already went way past that point. So things are going to be bad, but things can always get worse. And, the metric that a couple of things that stuck out to me that were the most impactful was that since the 70s, they said 2 degrees of warming of the earth beyond where we were at was going to be a disaster. That was going to be the world-ending thing that they've always said in the 70s that we must avoid because that will be irreparable damage to the planet and all this other stuff. And we're on track to do almost 4. And so there's we need to do everything we can. If we did everything we can now on a global scale, maybe we wouldn't hit the 2 degrees. But things get worse from 2 degrees to 4 degrees to 8 degrees and shit like that. 4 degrees of warming, which is what we're almost on track to do, 3.8 by 2060 or some shit like that. That means there's palm trees in the Arctic. That means that's what that actually levels out to. And now there's all this sorts of new shit that's coming out saying that 3.5 degrees of warming could mean that we actually lose clouds. Fucking clouds go away because the earth gets too hot. And if clouds are reflecting most of the light that we get from the sun back, if clouds go away and then we have no shield from the sun, suddenly the world, pumps up to 6, 7, 8 degrees. And 8 degrees of warming is literally Dante's Inferno, fire and brimstone, hellscape, eradication of all life on earth. And that is the kind of shit that we are looking at and facing, that we could be looking at trillions of dollars less in the global GDP and stuff like that. And that there not being any reason to, at this rate, things for there not to be hopeful for future generations, that there's, much left to live off of. And he's saying there's no indication that it will eradicate all life on Earth or something like that. People will survive, but billions of people could die from some shit if we don't do something. And one of the most impactful, yet in a weird way hopeful statistics that he talks about is that over half of the carbon that we've put out in the air right now has been actually put out in the last 30 years. Meaning in our lifetime, we've actually seen almost all the pollution that has actually made it here from the whole industrial age till now. It's been done in this period where we were fully aware of all the problems that this thing creates. But that also means that we could have the power to fix it, to reverse it, to actually make some real big movements and change towards shit, you know? Because the truth of it is that, like, you know, individually recycling and stuff like that, buying a car that runs on electricity rather than gas, or getting rid of your SUV, that doesn't really, it statistically does not have a significant impact on shit. What we need is the political will to actually mobilize and, you know, be ready for big actual change and be willing to make giant concessions and changes in the way that we live our life now, because modern society is not sustainable at this rate. You know, what we need to do is to have the political will and the courage to actually be able to change things about our lives.
But no, economically, the Green Act doesn't make sense. You know, you can't.
But actually, it does. Yeah, you know.
Being,
oh yeah, no. This is fantastic. No, you're queuing me up perfectly. I know you don't. Actually. But you know, it makes more sense now financially. We will add so much money to the global GDP if we actually, as a giant global community, start working towards decarbonization. Because you know, this dude, what he says is that we spend $5 trillion on oil subsidies right now in this country. So we are giving them free money, oil companies, to destroy the planet. We could take that money and invest it, and it would take, like, I think he said like $6 trillion or something like 6 or 8 trillion, or maybe even less than that, to invest into the machinery and the technology that we do have now to actually take carbon out of the atmosphere and start reversing some effects and stuff like that. Now, it's, you know, there's always complications to all that stuff, because it would take a gigantic infrastructure in order to store all that carbon and put it in a way that isn't dangerous. But I'm saying there are ideas out there, and there are movements out there, and people who are, you know, who are ready to answer this thing. And there's nothing that we can do now that's not going to cause a lot of pain and suffering all around the world. But actually, right now, we are experiencing historic, you know, suffering at the hands of climate change. But it's not a hopeless thing, and that, like, life will continue and we will go on, but we have to be ready and prepared emotionally, physically, financially, to live in a world that is just different than the one we're at, you know, and that, like, this continued accumulation of things, you know, the materialism of a lot of society is going to be okay to let go of, you know, and do stuff. There's you know, there's a lot of things that come with it, but there are ideas out there. And really the important part of this is that political will to enact these changes and do these things is the single most important thing that we can do right now. And looking at this thing as an opportunity for, you know, growth, prosperity, and restoring some balance to society, it's actually there. But, you know, there's this balance that he talks about, you know, because, you know, talking about all the doomsday scenarios and things like that, that's a way to, I mean, there's always been a worry that that's going to turn people off from the subject and have them not, you know, engage and feel like, oh, it's hopeless, so why would I do anything? But that is kind of not it. And the problem isn't really the climate deniers. The problem is actually barely America. We're only responsible for like 15% of global pollution and shit like that. A lot of it is with, you know, China and things like that. It's something for us all to be aware of, to be way more acutely, you know, aware of, and our impact, and knowing that, like, individually, some of it is out of our hands, but what we can do collectively, politically, is look to people who are taking this and treating this as seriously as it is, because they're at this rate, you know, if Trump has his way, reopening coal plants and shit like that, and just putting all this stuff out there, and all these people who just don't care that global warming is going to be a thing, and that it's, you know, destroying things, that there's going to be no earth left for people beyond after they die. It's important for us to actually rise up and fight back against those ideas. And, you know, there's things like the Green New Deal that people keep talking about right there. That is a idea to use our, you know, wealth and power to actually mobilize the entire country and reform the idea of what it is to be, you know, in America, kind of like working on these things too, to provide a new social, safety net to keep all these things going and to mobilize everybody into this giant project on the scale of World War II, which is where it was a hard time. It was this gigantic common enemy that we all could unite around to combat. And so now we face that on a global scale. And it's not just a giant problem, not something to fret about, not something to really there's no point in worrying about a lot of shit that you can't do. But the way I'm saying this is it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to all kind of find some commonality and to unite against this fucking thing. It's Dr. Manhattan in
Sauron.
Yeah, it's Sauron, It's uniting all the kingdoms together and we can combat this shit. And the road ahead is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But I have not felt right learning all this new shit and looking at all the, the new science, things like that, and not actually spreading this message. And they're like, hey, this should be everybody's number one priority. Because there's literally nothing more important than this right now if we're talking on the most macro scale that we can do. And it doesn't mean stay up all night, lose sleep and shit like that, because we got to compartmentalize. We've got to, there's no use living like that, because that's not good for anybody, just stressing yourself out way too much over it. But it is important enough that everybody should know this, be behind this, support these things, and just be ready, be prepared, educate yourselves, and know that there's nothing more important than this right now. Sorry, I know it's a downer, but that's the way I'm gonna end the show this week.
Well,
on that one.
It's important.
It's an important message, okay? But hey, we can do this. It's gallows humor. It's you need to be able to live your life in a way and find joy and find meaning in things, because that's what life is. All right? But also, nobody is allowed to be complacent anymore. You're not allowed to check out of this global problem because it doesn't feel good. Be ready there. Take your times, balance, Not everything is one thing, not everything is the other. It's the theme of this whole, everything that we've been talking about today, is don't get too sad, Oh shit, it's a scary feeling. I know. My chest also fucking tightens up thinking about this shit too much. But it's important to not lose, you can be hopeful, but know that nobody's coming to save us.
Yeah.
There's no cavalry that's coming. We're not going to invent our way entirely out of this, but we kind of already have. The ideas are out there. Support them. Let's work together and we can do this shit. Okay?
Anything can happen.
And in a world where, things are mobile and things are scarce, fuck it. We bring our festivals with us. Life becomes that. We're riding north, living in nature, doing shit like that. Community is the most important thing. We don't need all this fucking shit.
Bring back the real marauders.
Exactly.
The days of real pirating. No, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's definitely a good way to end it. It's
Be good and love each other.
Yeah,
That's what's important.
love yourself,
Love yourself.
and then love other people. Love yourself enough to care.
Exactly.
So, just it just takes me back to one, because in so many ways that you hear people say, like, it's important not to give a shit about certain things, just say fuck it, or nobody cares, as we brought about earlier.
Yeah.
There's that side of it for sure, but I always go back to this one time where this guy told me something, and it was one philosophy, and it could have been even something different than what he actually meant. But I was working at Joe's Crab Shack, and as anybody who has ever been to Joe's Crab Shack or worked there knows, that you have to do these fucking dances. And it was in the early days of when I was working there. And I, put my effort into what I did. Like, I was one of those people that cared about what I did and was out there doing the dance moves the way that they were supposed to be done. And this guy was at the bar, and he made sure to tell me he was drinking. He was just like, you know what? I like you. He's like, you give a shit. He's like, don't ever stop giving a shit. Because once you stop giving a shit, that's when things go to shit. And I was like, well, at the time, that was definitely something I took in my own way to mean something very beneficial.
That's beautiful.
And that is definitely something that, we need to put into our ethos as well. And, you could either do that or Dr. Seuss's Lorax. Unless somebody like you cares a whole awful lot, it's not going to get better. It's not, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful lesson. They might seem trite, they might seem cliche, and they come in a fucking 1,001 flavors. But that universal truth is right there,
It's
and there's
cliche
something
for a reason.
real to it. You
Pay
know?
attention and get it right. You know?
Yes.
So yeah,
like it's worth fighting for. All this shit is worth fighting for, but also love yourself. You know, live
Yeah.
your life in a way that's meaningful.
exactly.
Oh man.
Well, coming down to it, so where? Let's just say
If you guys want to get an early head start on all of my weekly doomsday scenarios that I spell out and all this shit I did not get to, you can find me freely ranting about this all hours of the day at Phil Nobody Cares on Twitter. And if you want to go to Instagram and see weird random shit like a commercial for cat Xanax that I made because Frankie was just weirdly calm one day, you can check me out on Instagram at Nobody Cares Phil. Also, while you guys are listening to this show, I know we were a little long-winded this time. I won't do this to you again. So go ahead and follow us on social media. That is at Let It Bleedcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to the show however you like getting your podcast. The power is in your hands, my friend.
Yeah.
Do you like Stitcher? No, nobody does. Of course not. Do you listen to Apple Music and Apple Play? What are you, fucking, 50? You don't know how to work a phone? No, but do you like Spotify? Do you like going through and syndicating it with your own, random podcast playing app from the App Store that syndicates shit from all the most common feeds? Well, you're in luck because I put them all out there, and motherfucker, you better appreciate it. So I want to see 10 downloads a piece from everybody, okay? And then go ahead and tell that weird guy that lives in your neighborhood that has not mowed his grass in probably a year and shit gets real creepy around there. This is how you're going to reach out because he's going to appreciate this. He's going to love it. You guys are going to hit it off. You guys are going to be best friends. And that is the story of this week.
Yep. Well, we got a couple of things I wanted to mention real quick too that are going on this week. I've been doing a lot of shit outside with other events. Some crazy cool stuff has been happening at shows. Got one this Saturday, Mutate LA. It's going to be the 4th episode. You got Truth as a headliner, big bass act, but also yours truly will be crowd acting, walking around, part of this really interesting and unique production that I'm very excited to have, kind of just taken off with. And it's been really fun getting to do something different. And I encourage you all to come check it out. You will not be disappointed. It'll be unlike any of the regular shows that you go to. And then the very next day, we have Art in the Park. It's going to be our St. Patrick's Day party at the park. It's green sauce. We're also going to be fundraising for Lost in the Sauce, which will be coming up next month, that you need to get your tickets for. And when you do, you can actually find the link. I'll be posting it to the Let It Bleed page, also on my own personal page on Facebook, as well as Instagram. You can find me at Hoodrat Stuff or the Psychedelic Lion's Den. And yeah, use Dr. Sauce as the promo code. Help us out. Help us get some money so we can bring the shit, because we're broke, but we want to bring some dope shit that we're not only going to be able to use this time, but for all of our future events. We're trying to bring art to the people, inspire, help them create and grow, realize that art is actually what's going to help change the world as well. So,
It's the reason we get up in the morning, man.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
Yes.
fucking go ahead, check that shit out, and check out that dope-ass painting you did of that side episode that we haven't aired yet of Frankie having a podcast with that goldfish.
Yes.
That shit was hilarious.
Yes. That's just one of his many and many guests. We're
Scope
going to
at
have to
Dr.
get some more
Sauce on
people.
Instagram for that shit.
There you go. Follow Dr. Sauce as well. All right. Well, thanks for staying with us this whole fucking long one. It was just us, and I think
An
it was
hour
good.
and 35 minutes. You're not too bad.
Oh, it's actually
we've
not
done
bad.
worse. We've done worse.
It's definitely, yeah, we could go on forever and ever. And you guys are troopers for sticking with us. And hopefully
We're fucking brilliant.
yeah, hopefully you got something really good out of that, because I did. I'm going to go home and watch a lot of shows now. So thanks for tuning in. As always, let it bleed.